Dia's Story Cloth, The Hmong People's Journey of Freedom by Dia Cha, Chu Ania Tao Cha. This story cloth shows the journey of my people. We are called Hmong, which means free people. Our journey begins long ago in China and continues to Laos and then refugee camps in Thailand. For over 125,000 Hmong people, the journey ends in the United States. My Aunt Chu and Uncle Nia Tao Chow sent this story cloth to me and my mother from the Chiang Kham refugee camp in Thailand. I will never forget the day the story cloth arrived in the mail 5 years ago. When I looked at the pictures in the cloth, I remembered how my own family came to the United States in 1979 when I was 15 years old. Everything in a Hmong story cloth is hand embroidered. Only the women used to do needlework. But since so many of our people have been detained in refugee camps, men, like my Uncle Nia, help make story cloths to pass the time and earn money. It takes many months to complete a story cloth. No patterns are used. No measurements are made. The needlework is done by eye and comes out perfectly every time. Here in the United States, stories are told in a different form, through illustrations in a book. But Hmong people living here today continue the tradition of needlework. The stitches in a Hmong story cloth make pictures of life. This story cloth will tell you about our life. A long time ago, my ancestors lived in China. The ancient Chinese government wanted to change the way the Hmong lived, but my people would not give up their culture and fled on foot across the river and through jungles to Southeast Asia. Some went to Burma, some went to Thailand. Like many Hmong, my ancestors migrated to Laos. When they arrived in Laos, the Hmong settled in the tropical highlands where no one had lived before. They had to clear forests to build their villages and plant their crops. They grew corn and rice. The daily life in the Hmong villages included working in the fields from morning to night. Both men and women tended the crops. Everything from tools to food was carried in different kinds of baskets on their backs. In Laos, the Hmong were able to farm as they wished and lived in peace for many years. When I was a child, in the 1960s, my family lived in a wood and bamboo house with a thatched roof made of palm leaves. Every morning I helped my mother and sisters pound rice. After breakfast, my family walked for almost 2 hours to our mountainside fields where we worked all day. Every evening we walked back home. At harvest time, we each carried a backpack basket filled with rice or corn. But as I was growing up, the peaceful life of my village was disappearing. Laos was caught in warfare. My country was divided in two. On one side, many Hmong men joined the Loyalist Army, which was supported by the American government. On the other side was the communist regime, which also recruited many Hmong men. My father left to fight with the Loyalist troops. My family began to move from village to village to escape the communist soldiers. Communist soldiers came to the Hmong villages and captured the men. They tied the Hmong hands behind their backs and took them away. The Hmong men kneeled down and begged for their lives, but the soldiers didn't listen. The Hmong women couldn't do anything to help. They cried and cried because they knew they might never see their husbands and sons again. My father was sent to fight in Shenquang province. He never came back. We don't know whether he was killed or captured. Airplanes dropped bombs on the Hmong villages. Many houses were destroyed by flames. Women and children fled into the jungle and lived in huts made from banana leaves. I remember having to get up in the middle of the night, feeling so afraid because we had to flee our hiding place. Sometimes we hid in the forest or in caves until the communist soldiers left. The communist soldiers shot at the Hmong men. The guerrilla soldiers came from their camps in the jungle and shot at the communists. Many people